Deep beneath the bustling streets of Seoul, in a hidden chamber untouched by time, an ancient artifact began to stir. It had lain dormant for centuries, its surface cold and lifeless, buried under layers of earth and forgotten history. But now, faint pulses of light emanated from within it like the heartbeat of something long thought dead. This relic was no ordinary object. It held the essence of Jin-Ho, once known as the Guardian of Earth, a protector who had sacrificed himself to seal away a terrifying force called Umbra. Above ground, life carried on as usual. Cars honked impatiently in traffic. Neon signs flickered above crowded streets, and people hurried about their daily routines. Among them was Yuna, a young astronomer working tirelessly at her lab near Seoul National University. She spent most of her days staring through telescopes, charting stars, and analyzing data. Lately, though, she'd noticed something strange. Entire star systems were vanishing without explanation. One moment they were there, glowing brightly against the backdrop of space. The next they were gone, leaving behind only empty voids. Yuna wasn't the only one puzzled by these anomalies. Across town, Hae-sung, another scientist known for his sharp mind but skeptical nature, had also observed the disappearances. At first he dismissed them as errors in equipment or misinterpretations of data, but when he witnessed one such event live through his telescope, a distant galaxy blinking out of existence before his very eyes, he could no longer ignore the truth. Something unnatural was happening. Yuna and Hae-sung's paths crossed during a conference where both presented their findings. Though initially wary of each other, Hae-sung found Yuna overly enthusiastic while Yuna thought Hae-sung too dismissive. They soon realized their research overlapped. Together, they decided to investigate further. Their collaboration led them to old Korean texts stored in the university library, dusty manuscripts filled with cryptic references to celestial guardians and cosmic battles. One passage caught Yuna's attention. When darkness consumes the stars, the guardian shall awaken. Intrigued, she translated the text aloud to Hae-sung. He scoffed at first, calling it superstition. But even he couldn't deny the eerie parallels between the ancient words and what they were witnessing in the night sky. Their search eventually took them deep underground. Guided by clues hidden in the manuscripts, they discovered the artifact buried beneath an abandoned subway station. Its surface shimmered faintly, pulsating with energy that seemed almost alive. As Yuna reached out to touch it, a surge of warmth ran through her fingertips and the room filled with a soft golden glow. From the artifact emerged Jin-Ho, or rather his spirit. He materialized beside Yuna, translucent and ethereal, yet unmistakably human. His appearance startled her, but his voice was calm and reassuring. "Do not fear," he said. "I am Jin-Ho, the Guardian of Earth." Jin-Ho explained his origins and mission. Centuries ago, he had fought a desperate battle against Umbra, a primordial entity born from chaos and destruction. Umbra sought to consume all light, turning galaxies into eternal darkness. To stop it, Jin-Ho had used every ounce of his power to seal Umbra away, sacrificing himself in the process. Now, however, the seal was weakening, and Umbra's influence was spreading once more. Yuna and Hae-sung listened intently, their skepticism giving way to awe. They asked questions. How could this be possible? What exactly was Umbra? And why had it chosen now to return? Jin-Ho answered patiently, explaining that Umbra thrived on imbalance and despair. Humanity's growing divisions, environmental neglect, and technological overreach had created fertile ground for its resurgence. But Jin-Ho was far from his former self. Stripped of his physical form and much of his strength, he needed help. He turned to Yuna and Hae-sung, urging them to join him in stopping Umbra before it was too late. "You may not believe in legends," he told them, "but you cannot deny what your own eyes have seen. If we fail, darkness will descend not just over Earth but across the entire universe." Reluctantly, Yuna and Hae-sung agreed to assist him. They knew little about cosmic entities or ancient guardians, but they understood the stakes. With Jin-Ho guiding them, they began preparing for the challenges ahead. Little did they know, their journey would test not only their courage but also their trust in each other, and in themselves. As they left the underground chamber, the artifact dimmed once more, its glow fading into silence. Yet somewhere in the depths of space, unseen forces stirred. Shadows lengthened, stars winked out, and a sense of foreboding settled over the world. The awakening had begun, and with it came the promise of conflict and perhaps redemption. For now, Jin-Ho stood watchful, his presence a beacon of hope amidst uncertainty. But the road ahead would be fraught with peril, and the true extent of Umbra's power remained unknown. All they could do was prepare, and pray that they weren't already too late. With Jin-Ho's warning echoing in their minds, Yuna and Haesung returned to the surface, their thoughts heavy with the weight of what they had learned. The world above seemed unchanged. People went about their lives oblivious to the growing darkness threatening to swallow everything. But for Yuna and Haesung, nothing felt normal anymore. Every shadow seemed darker, every star dimmer. They knew they couldn't face this alone. Jin-Ho explained that to stop Umbra, they needed more than just his guidance. His powers were limited in his current form, and without additional help, they stood no chance against the entity's growing strength. He mentioned an old historian named Subin who lived in Busan, a woman known for her deep knowledge of forgotten myths and legends. If anyone could provide answers, it was her. The trio set off for Busan the next morning, traveling by train. Along the way, Jin-Ho shared fragments of his past battles with Umbra. He spoke of how the entity fed on fear and chaos, spreading its influence like a disease. Entire civilizations had fallen under its sway before he finally managed to seal it away. But now cracks were forming in the barrier he had created, and Umbra's agents, the Voidborn, were already active, hunting for weaknesses to exploit. When they arrived in Busan, they found Subin living in a small, cluttered apartment filled with books, maps, and strange artifacts. She was a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. At first, she dismissed their story as nonsense, refusing to believe in cosmic guardians or shadowy entities. But when Jin-Ho revealed himself, his translucent form glowing faintly in the dim light of her room, even Subin couldn't deny the truth. Subin listened carefully as Jin-Ho recounted the situation. When he finished, she nodded thoughtfully. "There's a ritual," she said, "an ancient method used to weaken Umbra in the past. It involves 3 celestial shards, fragments of your former power scattered across the globe. If you can retrieve them, you might stand a chance." The news brought both hope and dread. Hope because it offered a path forward, dread because finding the shards would be no easy task. Each shard was hidden in remote locations, guarded by trials designed to test those who sought them. Failure meant death, or worse, falling under Umbra's control. Their first destination was Mount Baekdu, a volcanic peak straddling the border between North Korea and China. According to Subin, the shard there was embedded in the mountain's rocky summit, protected by illusions meant to confuse intruders. Reaching it required not only physical endurance but also mental clarity. The journey to Mount Baekdu was grueling. Winter winds howled around them as they climbed higher, the air growing thinner with each step. Jin-Ho floated alongside them, offering encouragement but unable to shield them from the harsh conditions. By the time they reached the summit, exhaustion weighed heavily on Yuna and Haesung. Yet they pressed on, driven by the urgency of their mission. At the top, they found themselves surrounded by swirling mists. Strange visions appeared, twisted reflections of their deepest fears and regrets. Yuna saw herself failing to save her family during a disaster years ago, while Haesung relived moments of doubt and self-criticism. The illusions grew stronger, pulling at their resolve until Yuna realized what was happening. "It's trying to break us apart," she said firmly. "We have to trust each other." Taking charge, Yuna led the way, guiding Haesung through the fog. Her confidence steadied him, and together they navigated the maze of illusions. When they finally reached the shard, a glittering crystal embedded in the rock, it pulsed brightly, responding to their unity. Jin-Ho absorbed its energy, his form becoming slightly more solid. For the first time since his awakening, he felt a glimmer of his old strength returning, but their victory was short-lived. As they descended the mountain, dark shapes began to emerge from the shadows. The Voidborn had found them. These creatures were humanoid but distorted, their bodies made of shifting darkness. Their red eyes glowed with malice as they advanced silently, weapons drawn. Jin-Ho stepped forward, raising his hands. A burst of golden light erupted from him, driving the Voidborn back temporarily. "Run!" he shouted. "I'll hold them off." Yuna and Haesung hesitated, torn between fleeing and staying to help. But Jin-Ho's expression left no room for argument. Reluctantly, they obeyed, sprinting down the slope as fast as they could. Behind them, Jin-Ho fought valiantly, his energy flaring brightly against the encroaching darkness. By the time they reached safety, the Voidborn had withdrawn, retreating into the shadows. Jin-Ho rejoined them, visibly weaker but still determined. Next, they traveled to Antarctica, where the second shard lay buried beneath layers of ice. Here, the trial centered on intellect rather than courage. Ancient puzzles etched into the frozen landscape challenged their ability to think critically and work together. Haisung's scientific mind proved invaluable, deciphering complex patterns tied to constellations. However, his skepticism nearly cost them dearly when he doubted one of Yuna's instincts, causing a trap to activate. Only quick thinking saved them from injury. Finally, they retrieved the shard and Jin-Ho absorbed its energy. His form grew more stable, though he remained translucent. The group celebrated briefly before moving on to their final destination, the Egyptian desert. There the third shard awaited, hidden within ruins left behind by an extinct civilization. This trial tested their unity most severely. Betrayal struck unexpectedly when Subin, momentarily possessed by a Voidborn, turned against them. In a tense standoff, she regained control just in time, sacrificing her own safety to secure the shard. With all three shards united, Jin-Ho absorbed their full power. His body became fully opaque, his presence commanding and strong once more. Yet the process drained Yuna and Haisung significantly, leaving them physically and emotionally exhausted. As they rested, Jin-Ho warned them that their greatest challenge still lay ahead. Umbra's forces were closing in and time was running out. Despite their weariness, Yuna and Haisung felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had come so far, faced unimaginable dangers, and emerged victorious. Now, with Jin-Ho restored to a fraction of his former glory, they prepared for the ultimate confrontation. Little did they know, the battle would demand sacrifices beyond anything they had imagined. As night fell over the desert, stars twinkled faintly above. Somewhere in the vast expanse of space, Umbra stirred, sensing the resurgence of its ancient foe. The stage was set for a clash that would determine the fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire universe. With the celestial shards now united, Jin-Ho stood stronger than he had in centuries. His form was no longer translucent but solid, glowing faintly with an inner light that seemed to push back the shadows around them. Yet despite his regained strength, a sense of urgency weighed heavily on him. The balance between light and darkness was tipping dangerously, and Umbra's influence was spreading faster than ever before. Yuna and Haisung, however, were not faring as well. The trials they had endured to retrieve the shards had taken their toll. Exhaustion clung to them like a second skin, their movements slower and their minds clouded with fatigue. Even Subin, who had joined them reluctantly after her moment of possession by the Voidborn, looked pale and shaken. But there was no time to rest. Jin-Ho reminded them that every second they wasted brought Umbra closer to breaking free entirely. "The next step is clear," Jin-Ho said, his voice steady but tinged with concern. "We must confront Umbra directly, but to do so, we need to open a portal to the void dimension where it resides. This ritual requires immense focus and energy, more than I alone can provide." Yuna frowned, rubbing her temples as she tried to process his words. "What does that mean for us?" she asked hesitantly. "It means you and Haisung will have to channel your combined willpower into opening the portal," Jin-Ho replied. "It's dangerous. If either of you loses focus or gives in to fear, you could be pulled into the void yourself." Haisung crossed his arms, his expression skeptical. "So basically we're risking our lives again?" "Just great," Jin-Ho didn't argue. Instead he met Haisung's gaze with unwavering calmness. "I won't lie to you. The risk is real. But if we don't act now, Umbra will consume everything, not just Earth but countless other worlds. You've already proven yourselves capable of facing incredible challenges. Trust in that." For a moment silence hung over the group. Then Yuna nodded firmly. "We'll do it. We've come this far. There's no turning back now." Haisung sighed but eventually agreed. He trusted Yuna's determination, even if he still harbored doubts about their chances. Together, the four of them began preparing for the ritual. Jin-Ho instructed them to gather specific materials: ancient symbols carved into stone, herbs burned for purification, and water drawn from a sacred spring. Each item carried meaning, tying them to the forces of balance Jin-Ho hoped to restore. As night fell, They set up the ritual site in the middle of a desolate field far from civilization. The air was cold and the ground beneath their feet felt hard and unyielding. Jinho arranged the items in a circle, explaining the importance of symmetry and precision. When everything was ready, he turned to Yuna and Haisung. "This is it," he said. "Focus on the light within you, the strength that has carried you through every trial. Let it guide you. And remember, you're not alone. I'm here and so is Subin." Subin, standing quietly off to the side, gave a small nod. She held a staff made from an ancient tree, its wood etched with protective runes. Her role was to guard them against any interference from the Voidborn while they performed the ritual. Though she wasn't trained for combat, her knowledge of ancient magic would prove invaluable. Yuna and Haisung stepped into the center of the circle, their hands clasped tightly together. Jinho began chanting softly, his voice rising and falling like waves. The symbols on the stones glowed faintly, responding to his words. Slowly, a shimmering portal began to form above them, its edges rippling like liquid silver. But opening the portal came at a cost. As the energy surged, Yuna and Haisung felt it pulling at them, tugging at their very souls. Their vision blurred, and their bodies trembled under the strain. Images flashed before their eyes. Memories of loss, moments of doubt, fears they had buried deep inside. It was all too easy to give in, to let go and drift away into the void. "Stay focused," Jinho urged, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Hold on to each other. Remember why you're doing this." Yuna gritted her teeth, forcing herself to concentrate. She thought of her family, her friends, everyone counting on them to stop Umbra. She squeezed Haesung's hand tighter, drawing strength from his presence. Haesung, though struggling, followed her lead. For once he didn't question or hesitate. Together they pushed back against the darkness threatening to overwhelm them. Finally, with a burst of golden light, the portal stabilized. It hovered above them, pulsating with energy, a gateway to the unknown. Jinho stepped forward, his expression resolute. "This is where we part ways," he said. "I must enter the void alone to confront Umbra. You've done enough. Stay safe." "No," Yuna said suddenly, shaking her head. "We're coming with you." Haesung blinked in surprise. "What, are you serious?" "We started this together," Yuna insisted, looking at both men. "We finish it together." Jinho hesitated, torn between gratitude and concern. He knew the dangers of the void dimension. It was a place of endless shadow and despair, designed to break even the strongest wills. Taking Yuna and Haesung with him would put them at immense risk. But he also understood their resolve. They had faced so much already, and their unity was a force to be reckoned with. "Very well," he said finally. "But stay close to me. The void will try to separate us." One by one, they stepped through the portal. The world shifted around them, colors bleeding into shades of gray and black. The air was thick and heavy, pressing down on them like a suffocating weight. Strange whispers echoed in their ears, voices speaking in languages they couldn't understand. Shadows writhed and twisted, forming shapes that seemed almost human before dissolving into nothingness. In the distance, a massive figure loomed, a swirling mass of darkness with piercing red eyes. It was Umbra, its presence overwhelming and terrifying. Jinho raised his hands, summoning a barrier of light to shield them. "This is it," he said grimly. "Prepare yourselves," Umbra roared, the sound reverberating through the void like thunder. Tentacles of shadow lashed out, striking at the barrier. Jinho countered with bursts of golden energy, each attack pushing back the darkness momentarily. But it wasn't enough. Umbra was too powerful, its strength seemingly limitless. Yuna and Haesung watched helplessly as Jinho fought, their hearts pounding with fear and desperation. Then Yuna remembered something Jinho had said earlier, that Umbra thrived on imbalance and despair. An idea sparked in her mind. "We need to create balance," she whispered urgently to Haesung. "That's the only way to weaken it." Haesung nodded, understanding immediately. They joined hands again, focusing on the light within themselves. Slowly, a soft glow began to emanate from their bodies, spreading outward and mingling with Jinho's energy. The combined light grew brighter, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. Umbra recoiled, its form flickering uncertainly. Sensing an opportunity, Jinho launched a final, powerful attack, driving the entity back further. But it wasn't defeated yet. With a deafening roar, it surged forward, attempting to engulf them completely. Just as all hope seemed lost, Yuna shouted, "Think of the people who believe in us. Think of everyone depending on us." Her words resonated deeply, Images of loved ones, strangers, and entire communities flashed through their minds. The light intensified, becoming blinding. Umbra shrieked, its form unraveling as the balance shifted decisively. When the light faded, the void was silent. Jinho, Yuna, and Haesung stood together, breathing heavily but alive. Umbra was gone, or rather sealed away once more, its power diminished significantly. But the victory came at a price. Jinho collapsed to his knees, his body flickering like a dying flame. "My time is ending," he said softly. "Thank you for everything." Before they could respond, he vanished, leaving behind only a faint glow that lingered briefly before fading completely. Back on Earth, the group emerged from the portal, exhausted but triumphant. The skies cleared, and for the first time in weeks, stars shone brightly overhead. Though Jinho was gone, his sacrifice ensured that balance had been restored for now. As they walked away from the ritual site, Yuna glanced up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, amidst the infinite expanse of space, she felt a lingering sense of peace. Jinho's legacy lived on, watching over them from afar. And though the future remained uncertain, they faced it together, united by the bonds they had forged in the face of unimaginable darkness. The world had changed, not in ways people could easily see, but in subtle, creeping shadows that seemed to linger longer than they should. Days grew darker, nights colder. Strange occurrences became commonplace. Power grids failed without explanation. Crops withered despite perfect weather conditions, and animals fled their habitats as if sensing an unseen threat. Humanity began to feel it too, a collective unease settling over cities and towns like a suffocating fog. Yuna, Haesung, and Subin returned to Seoul after their harrowing journey through the void. Though they had succeeded in sealing Umbra once more, the victory felt hollow. Jinho was gone, his light extinguished in the final moments of their battle. Without him, the group felt exposed, vulnerable. They knew Umbra wasn't truly defeated. It had been weakened. Yes, but its essence still lingered somewhere, waiting for another chance to rise. Subin spent most of her days buried in research, poring over ancient texts and maps in search of clues about what might happen next. She warned Yuna and Haesung that sealing Umbra hadn't solved the root problem. "Balance is fragile," she explained one evening, her voice low and weary. "If we don't address the imbalance that allowed Umbra to grow so strong in the first place, this will happen again." Her words haunted them. Yuna couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Haesung, ever the skeptic, tried to rationalize things, telling himself that humanity was resilient and would find a way to adapt. But even he couldn't ignore the growing signs of chaos around them. One morning, Yuna woke to find her phone flooded with alerts. News outlets reported massive blackouts across Asia, Europe, and North America. Satellites monitoring Earth's atmosphere detected strange energy readings unlike anything scientists had seen before. Panic spread quickly, fueled by rumors of shadowy figures appearing in the darkness, whispering promises of despair. Governments scrambled to respond, but their efforts felt futile against a force no one fully understood. The Voidborn, the agents of Umbra, were everywhere now. No longer content to lurk in the shadows, they moved openly, sowing fear wherever they went. In Seoul, reports surfaced of entire neighborhoods vanishing overnight, their inhabitants reduced to ash or worse, turned into mindless servants of the darkness. The streets emptied as people barricaded themselves indoors, praying for salvation. Yuna and Haesung realized they couldn't stand idly by while the world crumbled around them. With Subin's help, they devised a plan to fight back. Using the knowledge gained from retrieving the celestial shards, they worked tirelessly to create tools capable of disrupting the Voidborn's influence. Amulets etched with protective runes, weapons infused with traces of Jinho's residual energy, and devices designed to detect shifts in energy patterns, all became part of their arsenal. But preparation alone wasn't enough. They needed allies. Word of their efforts spread quietly among those who refused to give in to despair. A small but determined resistance formed, composed of ordinary citizens willing to risk everything to protect what remained of their world. Among them was Minji, a young engineer skilled at modifying technology to counteract the Voidborn's powers, and Daeyoung, a former soldier whose tactical expertise proved invaluable in organizing defensive strategies. Together, they launched targeted strikes against the Voidborn, focusing on areas where their presence was strongest. Each mission was dangerous, pushing the team to their limits. During one particularly brutal encounter in the ruins of Guanghuamun Plaza, Yuna found herself face-to-face with a towering Void-born commander. Its red eyes burned with hatred as it lunged at her, claws extended. Only quick thinking and Minji's modified electromagnetic pulse weapon saved her life. Despite their victories, the cost was high. Many members of the resistance fell in battle, their sacrifices weighing heavily on those who survived. Taeyang bore the scars both physically and emotionally, his usual stoicism giving way to moments of raw grief. Yet he never wavered, reminding everyone that giving up meant handing the world over to Umbra entirely. As weeks turned into months, the situation grew increasingly dire. Entire cities succumbed to darkness, swallowed whole by Umbra's influence. Governments collapsed under the strain, leaving survivors to fend for themselves. Even nature seemed affected, with rivers drying up and forests turning to ash. The sky above Seoul remained perpetually overcast, a grim reminder of the looming threat. Amidst the chaos, Yuna began experiencing vivid dreams. In them, she saw glimpses of Jin-ho, not as the powerful guardian he once was, but as a faint, flickering presence trapped between worlds. He spoke to her, urging her to keep fighting. "Umbra thrives on division," he said during one dream. "To defeat it, you must unite not just yourselves, but all of humanity. Only then can true balance be restored." His message resonated deeply with Yuna. She shared her visions with Hae-sung and the others, inspiring them to broaden their efforts beyond combat. They started broadcasting messages of hope across surviving communication networks, encouraging people to come together and resist the darkness. Slowly but surely, communities began rebuilding trust and cooperation, driven by the belief that unity could overcome despair. However, the greatest challenge lay ahead. One night, as the team regrouped in their makeshift headquarters, Subin approached them with grim news. Her research had uncovered something alarming. Umbra's seal was breaking completely. It wouldn't be long before the entity emerged fully, bringing with it an unstoppable wave of destruction. "We have one last chance," Subin said, spreading a map across the table. "There's a ritual site deep within Mount Sorak, a place where ancient forces converge. If we perform the right ceremony there, we might be able to reinforce the seal temporarily. But it'll require immense energy and sacrifice." Yuna didn't hesitate. "We'll do it," she said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Hae-sung nodded in agreement, though his expression betrayed his fear. "Let's end this." With renewed determination, the group set out for Mount Sorak. The journey was perilous, the landscape scarred by Umbra's influence. Shadows writhed in the corners of their vision, and the air carried an oppressive weight that made every step feel like a struggle. Still, they pressed on, guided by Subin's directions and fueled by the hope that their actions could make a difference. When they reached the ritual site, they found it guarded by a horde of Voidborn. The battle that followed was fierce, testing every ounce of their strength and resolve. Minji used her inventions to disable the creature's defenses, while Dae-young coordinated attacks to thin their numbers. Yuna and Hae-sung fought side by side, their movements synchronized as they pushed toward the heart of the site. Finally, they reached the altar, a stone platform inscribed with glowing runes. Subin began the ritual, chanting softly as she traced intricate patterns in the air. Energy surged around them, crackling with power. But as the ceremony neared completion, the ground trembled violently. From the shadows emerged a colossal Voidborn unlike any they had faced before, a harbinger of Umbra itself. "It's trying to stop us," Hae-sung shouted, raising his weapon. "No," Yuna cried. "Protect Subin." "She has to finish." Dae-young stepped forward, drawing the creature's attention away from the altar. "I'll hold it off," he yelled. "Don't waste this chance." Tears streamed down Yuna's face as she watched him engage the monster, knowing full well the odds were against him. But his bravery bought them precious time. Subin completed the ritual just as Dae-young fell, his body dissolving into light. The runes flared brilliantly, bathing the area in golden radiance. For a moment, the darkness receded, banished by the surge of energy. Then silence fell. Exhausted but alive, Yuna, Hae-sung, and Subin stood amidst the ruins of the battlefield. The seal had been reinforced, buying humanity a reprieve, but at great cost. As they gazed at the horizon, streaks of sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time in months. Hope stirred faintly, fragile yet undeniable. Their fight wasn't over. Umbra still waited, biding its time. But for now, they had won a temporary victory, a reminder that even in the darkest times, light could prevail. And as long as they stood united, they would continue to fight for a brighter future. The battle at Mount Sorak left scars that ran deeper than anyone could have imagined. The resistance had succeeded in reinforcing the seal on Umbra, but the cost weighed heavily on their hearts. Day Young's sacrifice was a wound that refused to heal. His absence felt keenly by everyone who had fought alongside him. Yuna often found herself staring into the distance, replaying moments of their journey and wondering if they had done enough, or if it would ever be enough. Haesung tried to stay strong for the group, but even he struggled to keep his doubts at bay. Nights were the hardest. When the others slept, he would sit alone under the stars, gazing at constellations that seemed dimmer now, as though the universe itself mourned what had been lost. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were merely delaying the inevitable. Umbra was still out there, waiting, growing stronger with every passing day. Subin, too, carried her burden silently. She spent hours poring over ancient texts, searching for answers that might give them an edge against the darkness. Her hands trembled as she traced faded ink on brittle pages, her mind racing with possibilities. But no matter how much she read or analyzed, one truth remained clear. Sealing Umbra wasn't enough. To truly defeat it, they needed to address the imbalance within humanity itself, the divisions, fears, and greed that fed its power. Yuna became the glue holding the group together. Though grief lingered in her eyes, she refused to let despair take hold. "We've come this far," she reminded them during quiet moments. "We can't stop now." Her words carried weight, not just because of her determination, but because she genuinely believed in them. She had faith not only in themselves but in the people they were fighting for. Their next step came unexpectedly. One evening, while scanning the skies through a telescope, Yuna noticed something unusual, a faint pulse of light emanating from deep space. It wasn't like anything she'd seen before, neither star nor supernova. Intrigued, she called Haesung and Subin to take a look. "It's alive," Haesung murmured after analyzing the data. "Some kind of energy signal. Could it be connected to Jinho?" Subin frowned, flipping through her notes. "There are legends about guardians leaving echoes behind, invisible imprints of their power meant to guide future generations. Maybe this is one of those." Whatever it was, they agreed it deserved investigation. Using Minji's modified satellite technology, they tracked the source of the signal to a remote region in Mongolia. The journey there was fraught with challenges. The land was harsh and unforgiving, and the presence of Voidborn made travel dangerous. Still, they pressed on, driven by the hope that this mysterious light might hold answers, or perhaps even allies. When they arrived at the coordinates, they discovered a hidden valley surrounded by towering cliffs. At its center stood an ancient stone monolith, etched with glowing symbols that matched those carved into the celestial shards they had retrieved earlier. As Yuna approached, the air shimmered and a familiar voice echoed around them. "Yuna." "Haesung." It was Jinho, or rather an echo of him. His form flickered faintly, translucent but unmistakable. He smiled softly, his expression both proud and sorrowful. "You've done well," he said. "But your fight is far from over." "What do you mean?" Yuna asked, stepping closer. "How can we stop Umbra permanently?" Jinho hesitated as though weighing his words carefully. "Umbra cannot be destroyed outright. It is a part of existence, born from chaos. But it can be contained, balanced. To achieve this, you must understand its origins." He explained that Umbra had once been a force of creation, existing alongside light to maintain harmony in the cosmos. Over time, however, humanity's actions disrupted this balance. Wars, environmental destruction, and unchecked ambition tipped the scales, allowing Umbra to grow corrupt and destructive. To restore equilibrium, humanity itself needed to change, to embrace unity, compassion, and responsibility for the world they inhabited. But how do we make people see that? Haesung asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "Most of them are too busy surviving to think about balance." Jinho nodded knowingly. "That is why I am here. This echo of my essence carries fragments of the celestial shard's power. If you channel it correctly, you can amplify your message, reaching minds across the globe. You must inspire others to believe in a better future. Not out of fear, but out of hope." With that, he extended his hand toward Yuna. A warm glow enveloped her, filling her with a sense of purpose unlike anything she'd ever felt. It wasn't just strength, it was clarity, understanding, and an unshakable belief that they could prevail. As Jinho's form began to fade, he offered one final piece of advice. Remember, light thrives when shared. Trust each other, trust yourselves, and never lose sight of what you're fighting for. When he vanished completely, silence fell over the valley. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Yuna turned to the others, her eyes shining with resolve. Let's finish this. They returned to Seoul, where the remnants of humanity clung to survival. Using Jinho's essence, they broadcast messages of hope across every available channel. Radio waves, digital networks, even graffiti scrawled on crumbling walls. Their words were simple yet powerful. We are stronger together. Together we can rebuild. Together we can shine. Slowly but surely the message spread. People began coming together, sharing resources and working side by side to rebuild their communities. Fear gave way to determination, despair to resilience. Even those who had succumbed to the Voidborn's influence showed signs of breaking free, their minds waking from the haze of darkness. Meanwhile, Umbra stirred restlessly, sensing the shift in energy. Its attempts to reclaim dominance grew more aggressive, unleashing waves of Voidborn upon cities and towns. Yet wherever the creatures appeared, they were met with resistance, not just from fighters like Yuna and Haisung, but from ordinary citizens armed with courage and newfound unity. The final confrontation came unexpectedly. One night, as Yuna and Haisung patrolled the outskirts of Seoul, they felt a sudden surge of dark energy. The sky split open, revealing a swirling vortex of shadow and fire. From it emerged Umbra itself, its massive form blotting out the stars. You cannot win, it rumbled, its voice echoing like thunder. Balance is an illusion. Chaos will always reign. Yuna stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. No, you're wrong. Balance isn't perfect, it's messy, imperfect, and sometimes painful. But it's real. And so are we. Behind her, thousands of voices joined in unison, chanting words of defiance. Lights flickered to life across the city, powered not by electricity but by sheer willpower. The collective energy formed a barrier between Umbra and the earth, pushing back against its oppressive presence. Haesung raised his weapon, infused with Jinho's essence. This ends now. Together they launched a coordinated attack, combining their strengths with the unified spirit of humanity. Each strike weakened Umbra further, its form flickering and distorting until it let out a deafening roar. With one final burst of energy, the entity imploded, dissolving into nothingness. When the dust settled, dawn broke over the horizon. The sky was clear for the first time in years, bathed in golden sunlight. People emerged from their shelters, blinking in disbelief at the beauty of the world they had almost lost. Yuna and Haisung stood side by side, watching the sunrise. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Rebuilding would take time, effort, and countless sacrifices. But for now, they allowed themselves a moment of peace, knowing they had played a part in saving the planet, and perhaps the stars beyond. As they walked away, whispers among the cosmos hinted that Jinho's legacy lived on, watching over Earth from afar. And somewhere, amidst the infinite expanse of space, a faint glimmer of light flickered, a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, hope endures. Image E.